sun rose slowly over Bokum village, casting its warm glow on the dense forest and sleepy huts. But inside Mr. Francis's home, there was no warmth, only tension. The news of Oka's pregnancy had spread like wildfire, and the whispers from the villagers grew louder with each passing day. Monika sat on a stool in the corner of their living room, her sewing materials untouched. Her mind raced as she replayed the events of the past weeks. How had this happened? How had her daughter, who never ventured out, become pregnant? Her gaze shifted to Oka, who sat silently by the window, her hands resting protectively over her belly. "Oka," Monika's voice trembled, "tell me the truth. Who is responsible?" Oka's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. The weight of her secret was too much to bear. She looked at her father, sitting in his usual chair, carving a piece of wood. His expression was calm, almost indifferent. "Francis," Monika's voice rose, "say something. Our daughter is pregnant, and you're just sitting there." Mr. Francis set the carving down and looked at his wife. "What do you want me to say?" he asked coldly. "The child is hers. She'll have to deal with it." Monika's heart sank. "Deal with it? She's just a child herself. How can you be so heartless?" Before Mr. Francis could respond, there was a knock at the door. Monika hurried to open it, finding their neighbor, Mama Ekong, standing outside. Her face was etched with concern. "Monika, is it true?" Mama Ekong asked. "Is Oka pregnant?" Monika hesitated, unsure of how to respond. The truth was too painful, too shameful. But before she could speak, Oka's soft voice broke the silence. "Yes, it's true." Mama Ekong's eyes widened. "But how? Who?" Oka glanced at her father, who gave her a warning look. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable. "It doesn't matter," she said quickly. "Please, just leave us alone." Mama Ekong looked between Oka, Monika, and Mr. Francis. Her intuition told her something was terribly wrong, but she knew better than to push further. "If you need anything, Monika, you know where to find me," she said before leaving. That night, Monika confronted her husband again. "Francis, I know something isn't right. Tell me the truth. Did you do this?" Mr. Francis's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tongue, woman," he growled. "You're accusing me of something disgusting, because it's the only thing that makes sense." Monika cried. "Oka never leaves the house." Monika's voice broke as tears welled in her eyes. She glanced at her daughter, who had retreated further into herself, her small frame trembling with fear. Oka refused to meet her mother's gaze, staring blankly at the ground instead. Mr. Francis rose from his chair, his towering presence filling the room. His voice was low and menacing. "You will not speak of this again, Monika. Do you hear me?" "But Francis," Monika's voice wavered. "I said enough." He slammed his hand against the table, making both Oka and Monika flinch. "This is my house, and you will not disgrace me with your baseless accusations." Monika's heart sank as she realized the depth of her husband's control, not just over her, but over their daughter as well. She wanted to scream, to fight, but the fear of what he might do silenced her. The days that followed were agonizing. Monika tried to speak to Oka in private, but her daughter avoided her at every turn. The once vibrant girl she had raised was now a shadow of herself, consumed by a secret too dark to share. Meanwhile, the village continued to speculate. The elders called a meeting, summoning Mr. Francis and his family to address the growing scandal. Monika saw this as an opportunity to expose the truth, but she knew her husband would be prepared to deflect any accusations. On the day of the meeting, the village square was filled with curious onlookers. The elders sat in a semicircle, their faces stern and expectant. Mr. Francis stood before them, his expression calm and unbothered. Oka clung to his side, her head bowed. Monika stood a few steps behind them, her heart pounding. Elder Okon, the oldest and most respected of the group, spoke first. "Francis, The people of Bokum demand answers. Your daughter is with child, and yet no one has seen her with any man. How do you explain this? Mr. Francis's voice was steady as he replied, Elder, my family's affairs are not the business of the village. Oka is my daughter, and I will take care of her and the child. The crowd murmured in disbelief. Elder Okon raised his hand for silence. Francis, this is no ordinary matter. If you cannot provide an explanation, we must assume the worst. Are you responsible for this? The question hung heavily in the air. Monika held her breath, praying that her husband's arrogance would be his undoing. But Mr. Francis simply smiled. Elder, such an accusation is beneath you. I am a man of honor. I have nothing to hide. His denial only fueled the villagers' suspicions, but without proof, there was little they could do. The meeting ended with a warning for Mr. Francis to set his house in order. As the family walked back home, Monika felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the pressure from the village would force her husband to change. That night, Monika decided to confront Oka one last time. She waited until Mr. Francis was asleep, then quietly entered her daughter's room. Oka sat on the bed, cradling her swollen belly, her face pale and drawn. Oka, Monika whispered, sitting beside her. Please, tell me the truth. I can't help you if you don't talk to me. Tears streamed down Oka's cheeks as she finally looked at her mother. Mama, I can't, she choked out. Yes, you can, Monika urged, her voice breaking. Whatever it is, I'll protect you. I promise. Oka hesitated, torn between her fear of her father and her longing for her mother's comfort. Finally, she whispered, It's Papa. He's the father. Monika's world shattered. The room seemed to spin as the weight of Oka's confession settled over her. She wanted to scream, to cry, to rage, but all she could do was hold her daughter close as sobs racked their bodies.